Hello.
Hey, Deborah.
Hey, Donna. Hi, Kim.
Hi, Deborah.
How are you? Thanks for joining.
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm okay.
Yeah.
How are you handling all the disarray in District 3?
Well, some days I handle it pretty well, I think, but other days I feel like I have, I'm so on edge and I am ready to snap at any minute. Today was kind of one of those days, actually. I mean, I think that the structure is set up so badly, and that, when you have like a pyramid sort of structure of management, and the people around you, are sort of basically told what to do, and the size of the organizations prevents the kind of organic, trusting, kind of just equitable distribution of authority to act quickly. You end up in a situation like this. I mean, I think we see it at the federal government level. We're seeing it through Cuomo, and de Blasio has turned out to be very, kind of like thirsty for talking points and power and bragging rights, essentially, which is kind of what I feel like we're up to right now. It's just like, he said it again today, no other system in the whole country is able to do this. Who fucking cares? Excuse my language, I'm sorry.
No.
So sorry.
I mean, I think that the moment that we are in calls for colorful language. To put it nicely.
So, so this is where we are. So instead of, like this whole business of rolling out, yay, we're going to do outdoor learning, as he announced yesterday. And, a lot of schools were already trying to plan some of this, and we're being told no. Like in District 3, one of our Harlem schools has really spearheaded outdoor learning at PS 185, the school in 112.
Yeah.
The PTA there, so on it, like so ready to move, and she was shut down all summer long by the superintendent, by the executive superintendent. She went to the PEP to try to convince de Blasio, or to the chancellor, to pay attention to this. And maybe it took that kind of level of push, that advocacy, to get them to start thinking about it. But I mean, it's like, really, like, why does it take parent volunteers to stay awake till 2:00 in the morning and testify to get the DOE to just take action on a good idea, which isn't even that significant of a thing. Like it's been happening all around the world. Like,
yes, exactly. It's not a surprise.
Indoors is not healthy. We can take the kids outside.
Exactly. It's not a surprise.
1918. So, we're not inventing the wheel here, guys. We just need to put our thinking caps on and stop being so, like bravado sort of craven. And but
hey, Marquise.
Hey, Marquise, how are you doing?
He's still coming in. Oh, there he is. There he goes. Hey, Marquise, thanks for joining. I know you're doing 99 things.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, it started pouring while I was outside, so I was trying to get situated. I can't believe it.
Yes, it poured for about a good 15 or 20 minutes. It was crazy. Well, we're still waiting for people to join, so you can, if you want to mute yourself, I'll shout you out when I need you to come in, okay?
Gotcha.
Thanks. So also, Kim, what are you hearing about, de Blasio made this big stand about having all of these 100,000 seats for students on the days that they're not exactly in the classroom.
Yeah.
And there's this survey online bridges, asking, sort of try to fill out the need, which I think is ridiculous because there's over 1 million students. Of course, there's a need.
Right.
It's just ridiculous. It's another stall tactic, which shows me that there's nothing being done.
I think you're right. Yeah.
What do you know about these spaces, if anything? And I guess we should wait to talk about this when people come on, but just keep that question in the back of your head and
Okay.
know that it's gonna come from me.
Okay. Fair enough.
Because I'm confused.
I'm doing this all day long. It's insane. It's insane.
Yes, I'm confused. So it's 6:32. People usually join in between 6:30, 6:40, 6:45. Here comes Charles Powell, who is a pleasant welcome. Hopefully I get more of my committee members on, but he's on the board and he's always welcomed. It's good to see him.
No. Hi, Mr. Powell. I know I haven't seen him. He lives across the street
Hey,
from me.
Cam, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. How you doing?
Always good to see you.
Likewise.
Deborah,
Likewise.
how are you?
Hi, Charles. I'm doing well. It's great to see you.
Okay, yeah, happy to join this call.
Sure. Thank you.
And how are the children? You have just one daughter or you have more than one?
I have one.
I'm more
Oh, you just have one. I thought
Right.
there was more than one. You should have more children. You're an educator, so, and a parent and an advocate. So you should have at least 5 children.
I try.
Oh, 5 kids. Oof.
5 would be a lot. But I have a husband. He's a large.
Well, so
He's a
so
large
you have-
child.
Well, that's your
so
second
you
child.
have 2. So you have 2.
No, you have at least 2. I thought you had more. Maybe I was just confusing you. I always, in all of our encounters, something said you had more than one. But
No,
you know,
just
it's all good.
it's just me and you can actually see Harper, my daughter, in the background there. She's cooking dinner tonight.
Oh, nice.
Great.
Very
Okay.
nice.
Yeah.
We need to see her. I haven't seen her in a while.
You know, we were out on Tuesday mornings. We do the cleanup Harlem with the A. Philip Randolph Square group. We were out this morning. We've been out a couple of Tuesdays now, cleaning up Samuel Marks, the triangle right in front of my building, because I live at the Trumbull Funeral Home building, and dealing with Gregory Badgett and some of the members from the Randolph Triangle.
So can you help
so we've
us
been
with
around.
in your cleanups, and I'll even contribute to what's happening across the street in front of the Graham Court
Mm-hmm.
and on
Sure.
116th Street side. You see what's going on, right?
Yes, absolutely. Was just
The folks who are
walking by
living there, Deborah, you may not be aware. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it. I know Cicely has commented on it, but we have like whole families living out there now.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I know that in the cleanup this morning, there was only one other woman that was in the triangle when Gregory was sweeping up, and she ended up helping him. And then they left some stuff in an area because she said that it was where some people were sleeping, but she did not mention a family. So
But they know, Kim, they know when you're coming.
Okay.
So I noticed, so now you're helping me because I noticed yesterday the day was much lighter. So I know this is
Okay.
not the subject ever of our
Yeah.
conversation
Yeah.
for this
Yeah.
evening.
No,
so-
but Charles, it's fine because anything that's going on in the community is something that should be raised in any committee meeting. So it's fine, especially as we wait for people to join. I think it's a good topic to bring up. So please, no apologies necessary.
I'd also just echo that I agree with you, Deborah, in that in the sort of the absence, like there's a vacuum that's being created right now, right? Because the Parks Department doesn't have its seasonal staffers to come and clean up. And this not, the homeless people sleeping there, notwithstanding that, but in terms of the actual, the Tuesday cleanup day, the Parks Department isn't doing as much, and garbage receptacles have been moved off the streets because the sanitation department has budget cuts. And so there's this kind of intersectional community weakness that's been exposed by all of this, these conditions. And I actually think that schools, our middle school kids and our high school kids, in reality, we're going to need to we're not going to be able to buy our way out of this. Like, we're not, we're not going to just be able to put somebody out there and assume that it's going to happen. I think we actually have to, convince people to swallow pride and put on rubber gloves and get out there with brooms and just do it. And maybe as a result, we'll all be better people in the process, including our kids.
Thanks for that. And Charles, how are you doing?
I am blessed and highly favored, thank you. No, I'm actually doing pretty well. I was just telling someone today, I feel really, really blessed that in my family and extended family, we have not had any of these circumstances that I've had to deal with as a deacon. Many, many people in our community, many, many people from our church, have succumbed. So we actually went over and joined with the folks at Mount Nebo. And as you know, they lost a significant number of members. So Saturday before last, we went over and our deacons went over and prayed with Pastor Green and his crew, his congregation, and it was really important. So our community has suffered. So FCBC and and my family we've been very, very fortunate. So we're feeling blessed. So thank you for asking, Deb.
That's good to hear, because I had heard about the losses at Mount Nebo.
Yeah, you're talking and 20 plus persons,
Yeah.
And that's like a lot, and in a church, that side. So, we certainly have to come together as a community. As you pointed out, everything is relevant, so thanks for asking.
Sure. We are one village, one community. So
we are.
Everything should be discussed all the time. It is around 6:40. I know that there are a couple of other people that are going to join. A couple of people who were going to join are unable to join because of the change in date, and that's fine. And so the whole point of this today is sort of to have a conversation around. I had invited Pamela Stewart from CEC5 as well. I'm not sure she'll be able to join. She would have been on the call last Tuesday, but we do have Kim Watkins who can give us some perspective from the CEC, and also Marquise. I did have a rep that was going to come in from the UFT who is not available tonight. She was available last week. And so, we are blessed as a community board as a whole that we do have someone on the executive board and Marquise, who is acutely aware of what is going on the ground as far as the teachers are concerned. And Mari Moss is here, even though she's busy, and I appreciate it. And she had some ideas about how the committee should sort of move forward in this time. Some things that we should do. And hey, Tamara, how are you? I see you as well. So we're going to give people about 2 more minutes. And then I think that we should just start the conversation, because we do have a few things that we want to talk about. I want to talk about school opening up. And in that vein, FACE is having a meeting on Thursday. And I'm going to put the link in the chat. So that people can register for that Zoom meeting, because that should be very informative to students, because things are changing very quickly. There was de Blasio was on the news today talking about meeting outside. Initially they were against it, and now they're talking about it's okay, and the principals have to present a plan by Friday. Which is kind of a little, fast. And there's just a lot going on. de Blasio talked about there being spaces for kids. He was going to provide 100,000 spaces free for kids on days that they weren't actually in the classroom. There hasn't been a lot of conversation around there. There is a survey out asking parents if they need it. I was talking about Kim about this a little earlier. I think that the survey is unnecessary. This school system has over 1 million students. And so you're talking about providing 100,000 seats. I think that, of course, there is a need. I know that there's been some RFPs out. I know a couple of nonprofits that have answered the RFP, which is a little scary because this is something that's very recent, and school is opening up in 2 weeks. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of unanswered questions. I feel for the parents. I feel for the teachers. I think that the community is suffering around housing, which Charles Powell just talked about, and schools. I think that there are going to be a lot of young kids left at home alone this fall as the DOE tries to figure out what this blended school year is going to look like. And those are all my personal opinions. I just want to say that. Deborah Yates, those are my personal opinions based on things I've read and seen. It frightens me. I'm afraid for our students because our students are always behind before COVID in March. And I fear that, they will be a year or two behind once the dust settles. We still don't know if everybody has laptops or broadband. But think about it, just makes me very sad. Just makes me very, very sad.
Yeah.
I'm afraid for our community. I really am. What were you saying, Mari?
No, I was just going to concur with what you're saying and also point out that prior to the COVID-19, we had this issue of homelessness in our schools where parents were going around during the day while their children were in school looking for places to live. Now, I mean, Charles Powell mentioned this before too, that, a lot of people haven't been able to pay their rent. So housing is going to be continuously be an issue. Then having school outside, I think is also going to be of concern for many, like Tamara just mentioned in the email, safety measures, because you don't know who's in the park around the kids. How are they going to account for children? They don't want them to run off and go, I just know what it is to be a teacher. I've been in the classroom. My mother was a teacher. I've been a teacher's assistant, so I know what it's like to keep control of a classroom than to have to deal with it outside. I just wonder what kind of precautionary measures they're going to have in order to ensure that they have students' attention and their safety in mind and that they don't stray off, wherever they're going to be. So they have to think about all of those things.
And let me just say, right, and that was one of my concerns that I really placed in the email, because the fact is we have an uptick in shootings. And so we really have to look at where we're placing our children in these outdoor spaces, right? From the streets to the parks. We have to be very mindful of that, and that's one of my major concerns, in addition to what, Mari's saying about them running off, or, it's so much elements to the outdoor space. So, these are things that need to be considered, and parents, teachers, everyone have to be involved in this plan. And it cannot be rushed. Yes. And it's just like, it feels like it's just being rushed. Everything's not really thought through.
Right.
And we can't send our kids back to this type of environment if everything is not properly set in place and proper protocols set in place. All the unions are in an uproar over this. And I mean, we really have to work together to get this done properly.
Right. I completely agree. And I wonder why the DOB didn't partner with DOH prior to, the month of August, for example, to figure out what are the healthy precautions that need to take place in classrooms. Because if you can set up healthy precautions for these restaurants to, operate outside, I just don't see why they couldn't have retrofitted the classrooms properly for the kids to be able to go into the classroom. So I don't understand that
Kim,
aspect.
Kim, can you comment on some of that, please?
Sure, sure. The things I'm going to say will be, I'm sure confirmed
Well, can you
and echo.
introduce yourself?
Oh,
Can
I'm
you
sorry.
introduce
Yes,
yourself?
of course. Hello, everyone. I'm Kim Watkins. I'm president of CEC 3, and the schools in CEC 3 that overlap with Community Board 10 are from 110th to 122. So we have 6 schools in Harlem: PS 185, PS 149, PS 242, PS 76, PS 241, and PS 180. And I live also in Harlem on 115th Street. And, I've been going at this in terms of the council work that I've been involved with the CEC since my daughter was in the 1st grade. So I'm in my 3rd term, 4 years now as president. And, we knew that there were a lot of sort of policy process oriented challenges with dealing with this gigantic bureaucracy. And like pretty much everything else, the pandemic has laid bare the fissures that exist in that, the plans that are being developed are being developed largely in a vacuum with, high-pressed consultants that only began in the last couple of months. What we're hearing come out of the mouth of the chancellor and the mayor is not translating to what's happening on the ground. I mean, principals are working really hard. In fact, the principals are the heroes in all of this. Our school leaders are working hard. Parent coordinators are working hard. The custodians and the facilities guys, they're working hard. But the air quality issue, just to, sort of play off of, the specific thing that we were just talking about, the air quality issue and specific safety measures that we should have already been able to at least identify when schools closed down and, when the school year ended and we knew for sure that we were not, we were going to have to plan for this coming fall. But none of that happened. And so when the mayor comes out like 2 weeks ago and starts talking about upgrades to air quality, it is nonsense. Like, it is 100% fabrication, propaganda. And I know this because the facilities people are talking about how what they're seeing on the ground, what they're actually doing is essentially making sure that these buildings, and we have buildings that range in age from 100 years old to 60, 70 years old, and then there's a few newer buildings. None of them are in Manhattan, I think, with the exception of a couple.
Right.
We all have a lot of old buildings, and what they have in their buildings in terms of air quality are registers, like fans that bring some air in but very little and a little of air out. Often those pieces of equipment are not functioning properly. And so what they're doing is they're making sure that whatever a school building has, it's working. That's the upgrade. That's it, right? So other
No
Regular
air
maintenance.
purifiers, no ventilators,
No.
nothing like that.
No. And we would require, the other thing with our government is, this came out of someone else's mouth, and I'll just say it, that the price gouging, like these vendors are just raping us in terms of prices. And we're paying whatever we need to pay, right? Like we're just cutting a check, swiping the credit card, the DOE credit card for everything and anything in order to get all this done, which I completely understand why, but we take, I think the thing that I know the most about, which was a promise that the mayor made for the end of his term, right, was that an air conditioner was going to be in every classroom space before he left office. Something that now is, of course, on hold and won't happen. But there was I remember when my daughter was in kindergarten and we were in this old building, and I think we were trying to raise money to just go out and go to Costco and buy the air conditioners and then just hire someone to go in and do the work, right? But you can't do that because it's a union. And when then there's like some sort of special vendor that you have to use to buy the equipment, and it's all overpriced. Like one, window unit air conditioner is $10,000. When obviously that's not what it costs. So it's,
Right.
so buying, like upgrades to ventilation is a huge capital expense, and the DOE doesn't have any money. Although it
So
does.
what are your parents saying about students going back into the classroom? And what have you heard? I'm going to ask you this question. I told you to think about
Yeah.
those spaces that the mayor promised, with those free spaces that the mayor promised would be available to parents for their kids on the days that they're not in the classroom.
Right, the 100,000 spots for childcare for the blended learning families that have sort of partial week sort of schedules. Well, I will say that
free care.
Right. I will. I know that there were a lot of elements, a lot of groups looking for those individual spaces, like the physical spaces themselves, right? I know that Manhattan Borough President did some, analysis of this. I think other elected officials were kind of looking for spaces that might be possible.
Stewart.
Oh, good. And so people have been looking for those spaces, but I honestly kind of feel like the thing that is happening right now more has to do with the like cold hard reality of whether or not any in-person activity will take place at all, because we've exposed by, and we've had to like basically rip and pull and claw and beg and shame and put together press conferences and just like go all out to try and get people to know that certain things aren't happening. We do not have mandatory testing in place, or rapid testing, and therefore accurate tracing, right? That we don't have that yet. So there's that. And even before that, if you think about the specifics on the percentage of positivity cases of COVID, yes, we're low. Yes, we're, better than anywhere else in the country, or whatever, the sort of thing is to say. But the problem with it is the sort of, disparate percentages in different parts of the city. So if we're acting like one big school system, one of the things that's tricky is that there are neighborhoods where the positivity rate is above 5%. And there are neighborhoods where the positivity rate is like, 0. And one of the things that, is a little bit tricky is to figure out how do we move forward with the sort of average, like mathematical average, or are we trying to figure out how to move forward, in terms of individual neighborhoods. So those two things are really, really important, and just in the sort of basics. And then there's the issue of not having medical staff on site, right? We don't have PPE. 1 month's worth of protective gear is basically the policy right now. Like, what does that even mean? How would we plan for a school year with 1 month's worth of supplies? So back to your question, Deborah, is that I think kind of lost in the conversation, and I'll admit that we don't know anything about this. The CEC has not been involved in the conversations about childcare facilities opening up. No, not at all. Having said that, what I suspect is the case is that there is so much energy spent right now on what, the sort of political arena is looking like in terms of the union opposition, in terms of the, it's at principals in District 1, 13, 15, 2, 6, a couple of principals in District 3 have started to bubble to the surface in opposition of the plan. So a lot of principals are in opposition of the plan. CEC3, we have a letter that's going out tomorrow. We don't believe we should plan to open in person on September 10th. We just don't think we're ready. And and so, you know, so much energy is on that we really just have lost kind of that other issue is spinning out there. It's on the sidebar, but it hasn't come back to the reality yet, because unfortunately I think we're just going to end up starting remote.
Yeah. Question,
Which sucks.
Charles Powell put a question in the chat, which is a question I'm curious about as well, about the private educational pods that parents are putting together. Are you aware of any district? How are they coming about? Do they need to be licensed? Is the question, because if there's a parent that says, you know what, I'm not sending my kid back to school, and I have some like-minded parents, and now we have 5, 6, or 7, or 8 kids, and we're going to hire somebody to come in, you know, do you know of any of those pods that are happening in District 3? Kim?
I do not have knowledge of like specific organizational plans, but I'm certain that they are probably happening. I mean, in Facebook groups and, you know, emails. I mean, I think I see it on Harlem for Kids.
I see them too.
Yeah.
Harlem Moms, I see, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what I think is, what I hope, you know, I mean, we're all of us here in this Zoom, right? We're proponents of public education. We want public schools to figure out a pathway forward. And the reckoning with all of this is, you know, like the pods are kind of like, almost like a cancer, you know, like they'll develop a blood supply if they get to be, if they're successful. And sort of like the charter school movement, which, you know, I mean, as an idea and as independent kind of like pushback on the giant bureaucracy, the concept of opening a school in order to, you know, be innovative and, you know, test the kind of, you know, big government theory makes total sense to me. Just like with these pods, they're like a reaction to the sort of undercurrent of what's happening in public education. But as a, you know, if it develops a blood supply, meaning it starts raising money, and like Silicon Valley, and, you know, we like sort of start having, you know, startup companies that pull these pods together and do different, you know, sort of collaborative things, and that becomes a lobbying system, and therefore more tax dollars are going to be allocated to that, and therefore more money is going to be pulled away from public schools. So I think we have to really keep our eye on it and push to be open-minded, but yet, you know, make sure we're ready to go to battle.
Thanks for that. I'm just going to ask, Pamela Stewart has just said that she can't stay in the meeting. Pamela Stewart is the president of CEC3. And so I'm just going to ask her to chime in and to thank her for coming in, because I know, you know, the schedule change and everything. I really appreciate it. If you could just chime in on what's going on with CEC 5. Hi, Pam. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. But if you can I just pause for a few moments, because I have to log in to let them know that I'm here, because it's 7 o'clock and I like to be on time. Sure. All right, thank you. Because I thought this was starting at 7. Okay, so just give me a few moments, okay? All right, thank you.
Yes. Okay, so again, Pam.
While she's doing that, can I ask him? Go ahead.
Sure, go on, Mari.
No, I just wanted to ask him about PS 180 specifically. Yeah. Is that one of the schools that you were talking about that is sending a letter saying that they're not ready for September 10?
No, I don't know that 180 has come out with a specific opposition letter. No, 199 did. I think MS 54 did, and I'm hearing of a couple of others, but I haven't heard of that, though. Of course, we've got multiple members in our parent leader groups that have kids at 180. So I shudder to think that we're, you know, when CEC3's letter goes out tomorrow, which is a 5-pager, you know, we kind of exhaust things as we normally do with all the unanswered questions that we have, and, you know, basically just sort of, you know, getting to the nuts and bolts of things that you know, not only is in, you know, is this, you know, like the safety measures haven't been figured out yet. We don't have some trust in whether or not, you know, COVID-19 is going to affect people when we start going into buildings, but they've done just this piss poor job with remote learning. And, you know, it's happening. It worked well in some places, works terribly in other places. When we talked earlier about, you know, devices and connectivity, I mean, you know, why all of that has not been at the forefront of the conversations with school leaders is, you know, continues to amaze me. But it's a long letter.
Yeah, because I have 3 girls and 2 different schools, so that's all. All right, thank you.
Thanks for that question. Thanks for that question.
I have some information about 180. So text me or email me, because I understand that they have a very, very progressive, a very responsive, and a very, I think they might ironically, Mari, 180 might be the model for how we want others to really reopen. So give me a, you know, send me a text, or, you know, you and I will connect on that, because there's some good news coming out of 180.
Well, Mr. Powell, can you share that with me then too? That would be awesome.
Of course, Kim, you know, I'll always share anything with you. You know, no, I just so happened in a conversation I was having with someone yesterday, and they used 180 as a model.
Cool, I love it. That's what we should do, right? We figure out what works and then move it forward.
Maybe you can share it with all of us, but right now I'm gonna pull
No, you're right.
Pam Stewart. I'm gonna pull in Pam Stewart, who only has a minute. Pam, thank you so much. You can now speak. Pamela, you're on.
Can you hear me now? Okay,
yes.
I'm so sorry. I'm trying to juggle both meetings at the same time.
Sure, no problem.
But and just to say quickly, because I've attended so many meetings regarding the reopenings of schools, and one of them is a meeting at, believe it or not, Kim, at 180. I think the principal did a great job in informing everyone. And I'm just going to say that because, like I said, I've been to so many meetings. So yes, Mr. Powell, I think she did a great job in terms of informing the parents and the school community on the process. And I have a little one in the background. He's playing, so please forgive me. But I'm not confident at all or optimistic about the reopening of the public schools in New York City. The mere fact that the DOE would place our children's health and safety in jeopardy for the sake of funding it's not okay, right? And which I may add does not translate to equitable resources and quality education in District 5. It demonstrates further concerns are already vocalized by the UFT, CSA, medical experts, parents, students, and teachers. I'm quite sure that everyone here tonight read articles in the news about schools and universities across the nation that return to remote learning due to a rapid rise in COVID-19 cases among the student population. You know, so it bothers me to know that the chancellor will actually ignore those signs, and for the sake of funding, which he did admit at the PEP, if we don't reopen our schools, then we're going to lose funding. So what is more important to us? Is it the money, or is it our child's health? Is it their safety? And to Kim's point, you know, PPE that's not enough. You know, it's not enough to know that you're going to get PPE for 30 days. We both know that just getting bare necessities for the CEC doesn't happen in 30 days, right? There's a huge process. So what happens if the schools cannot get the supplies on time? What does that translate to, right? What would that look like? And in terms of communication, it really bothers me that they are not transparent. On August 12th, Mayor de Blasio said that 74%, more than 700,000 students were enrolled by their parents for the blended learning plan. 26% of the students will be taking part in remote only digital learning. The chancellor's rendition of this facts was significantly elevated at the chat meeting, right? He indicated that, I think it was 82 or 86%, Kim, you could correct me, of the parents actually use their fingers, and he pointed his fingers to select blended learning for their children. Therefore, we are preparing those students. Really? Well, the real fact is the survey that he's referring to was created to capture the number of students that are taking part in 100% remote learning, not blended learning. Now, and the students that did not opt for remote learning were automatically enrolled in blended learning. So now we have, in District 5, we have undocumented parents, English language learners, students with special needs, students in shelters and transitional housing, and they're always in terms of thinking about their needs and services, they're always a last thought, right? So therefore, they're not getting the communication. Every meeting that I attend, the parents are still asking the same darn questions, you know, and it behooves me, really, really, and it's across the district. So we can't say it's just District 5, right? It's across the district. So that says volumes right there, that the parents are not, if any of you went to the PEP, everyone
the same basic questions. The same basic questions, absolutely. So if they're still asking the basic questions and they're still telling you, and more people are coming out and telling you that they're concerned, they don't want to send their child in for blended learning, but then you're telling us that you have this large amount of students that are enrolled. You know that those facts are skewed and they're not correct, and you're using that to prove your point. But basically what you're saying is the parents are stupid and they don't understand the process. You understand what I'm saying? And it's really bothering me because I feel like they're, like I told the chancellor at the PEP, he's playing Russian roulette with our children, and I'm not happy. I'm not convinced, and the parents are not convinced at all. Yeah. And school is supposed to open in 2 weeks, and it seems as if we're still back in March with decisions that need to be made.
Exactly. And they're putting additional pressure on the principals, right? They're giving them things at the last minute, right? So now you want the principal to go and go to each principal in each district. So if there's a sibling in another school, the principals are now supposed to collaborate at the last minute. I mean, is that fair? They don't even have enough time. They already have deadlines. So why are you putting added pressure on them? Are you doing that because the union is speaking out? You know, but at the end of the day, we need to come together. Everyone on Facebook, everyone on this Zoom, we need to come together and we need to say enough is enough. Our children come first. Safety come first.
But what is CEC 5 planning, if anything, to sort of ensure that when the students go back, that they're going to go back into a space that's safe, and also that they have the, you know, technical things that they need, broadband, laptop, tablet. Are you guys working with the DOE to ensure that these things are in place?
So what we do, Kim, in District 5 is, you know, we're very
Deborah.
vocal.
That's Deborah.
I mean, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Deborah.
That's okay. That's okay.
One of the things that we do in District 5 is we're very vocal. So we have a great relationship with the superintendent. Any problems that come across my desk, I immediately, if it's in a meeting, I'm texting her. If I can call her, I call her. I'm trying to get into the schools and be a part of that. Like Kim mentioned, the CECs are not a part of those walkthroughs, right? And we all had to fight to actually get the SLTs to be a part of the walkthroughs. But some of the SLTs still are not a part of the walkthroughs. So that's a problem in itself. And this has been vocalized to the DOE, and it's still an issue. So we do the best that we can, and we vocalize it, and we make a point of informing the DOE that it's still an issue, and these are our needs in our district. Oh, and
I
also
just, I
reaching out
just
to
worry,
elected officials for
right. I
support.
just
So Gail Brewer has been
worry that
very,
our students are, go on, I'm sorry.
no. Gail Brewer has been very supportive in helping us out in terms of needs for our district. Very, very helpful. I can't say the same for everyone else. I'm a little disappointed because I did reach out to each and every one of them. So I'm still reaching out
Okay.
to them for help.
I'm not surprised. But can
Well,
I ask you why the SLT is not showing up for these walkthroughs?
Some of the LCTs have not been a part of the walkthrough. No. If they're
Why?
still complaining to me,
They
I
get
don't
paid.
know if
They get paid for those positions. Why are they not doing the walkthroughs?
exactly.
So the president of the PTA president who's on the SLT is supposed to be a mandatory member of safety committees, but they've kind of done a workaround for this process to create a different committee. I forget what they call them, response, I don't know, some sort of team, like some different name. I had this whole conversation at our meeting last Tuesday about this, because in my, in CEC3's opinion, we agree with Pamela. It is utterly ridiculous to not have a parent who, it only has to be one person. It doesn't have to be the whole team,
Right.
but someone who can then be the communication conduit to the rest of the community of parents. Because at this point, what are we supposed to do? Just trust everything you say? No.
Right now,
don't trust jack shit right now.
Right now, I'd like to bring in Marquise Harrison into this conversation. He is a member of our executive board. He is first vice chair, but he's also an active member. He's a teacher here in Harlem, but he's also an active member of the UFT. So Marquise.
Hey, hi everyone. I'm outside, so forgive me. But I think you were referring to the building response team, the BRT. So yeah, the BRTs don't necessarily include the PTA president. They can, and a lot of schools have sidetracked PTA presidents by having the parent coordinators there. And right, with the parent coordinators are supposed to represent that interest of the parents, but it's not always. Yeah, it's basically not always that way. And basically, then the parent coordinator is basically representation of the principal at that point, because they're hired by principals. So I mean, I've been listening to the conversation, Deborah. If you have specific questions, like from a teacher's perspective, right now the teachers, I say like this: the UFT right now is actually is really holding down the safety of both teachers and students, families, and administrators, because the administrators are not going to strike, but they are very much in with us. There is very serious talk right now of the teachers going on strike, and all the last 2 days, I mean, this is public knowledge, but the last 2 days, all I've been working on is strike plans, right? So like that means that we are very seriously moving forward. If the mayor doesn't we've been doing walkthroughs. A lot of the schools in District 5 don't even have half the things on the UFT checklist, which I can send you a link for. We have our own checklist that we compiled with the CDC and from the CDC and all the other experts that we're consulting with. And most of the schools are still not meeting those mandates in District 5, as well as I'm hearing in other districts all across the Bronx. Schools just don't have the PPE, the supplies, the glass, and all these things. Custodians don't know where these things are coming from. And so we don't know how it's going to be possible, at least for a September 10th opening. And these dates don't seem realistic. The UFT has been very consistent in saying, like, we want to be in schools. We want schools open, but maybe that start date has to be much further back for planning. Just to get where we're at, the DOE really has not planned at all, and kind of is very disheartening in my perspective to hear the mayor, and I tend to like the chancellor, but it's been very disheartening to hear their overconfidence in how they're projecting the preparation when we just don't see that in the buildings. And when we are going into the buildings, I mean, from every level, I talk to superintendents, principals, and teachers. No one sees what the chancellor and the mayor are projecting that the schools have. And from, one thing I shared with Deborah earlier is that this week, which is critical to opening schools on September 10th, if we were going to have schools really open, so many principals across the city and superintendents are on vacation, right? They were approved for vacation well before. So there's actually, in many schools, there's actually zero planning going through, you can't get many of the superintendents. And so this is just the reality of what's going on. And no one's talking about that. A lot of people are on vacation this week and you cannot even reach them. I've tried to contact several principals, but I'm being respectful that they're on vacation and they cannot hear back. I don't want to interrupt their vacation, but that really leads you to ask the question, well, where are our schools in planning for reopening? Well, because they are the implementers of what the DOE Central is saying that they have. And so, we're in a really bad situation, I think, in regards to being prepared for opening. And this week I've been surveying teachers across District 5 and in my school for the Douglas Academy. And we're just trying to see what teachers need, because we're actually preparing them to think more, what do we need to be effective as educators for remote instruction? And really, how can we help our students that way? Because it doesn't seem realistic that schools could be opening and actually prepared to open for this with all the safety precautions in place for September 10th or 8th or the 8th or whatever you're going to say.
No.
Marquise, on that checklist that you have for
thanks for that, Marquise.
No problem. Yeah, I'm listening, Mari.
On that checklist, who have you all thought about, or I know you guys have thought about it, because obviously you have a checklist, which I don't think anybody, obviously this administration didn't think about. But as far as taking temperatures and who would be designated to take temperatures or daily check-ins with the students when they come into the schools or come into class, I should say.
Yeah. So one thing that the U of T, we don't know. We're saying that we think it might be school aides and administrators for taking temperatures. But one thing the U of T has also demanded and is on our checklist is that every student, teacher, administrator, custodian, school cook, anyone entering a school building should have been tested at least within 10 days of opening. And then periodically, we need to have instant testing available for school buildings, right, where that people could be. So that would actually require at least about 700,000 people getting tested, let's say between next Monday and the first day of school, pretty much. And we don't know if the city's prepared for that type of getting the results back and all those things, because we were saying that everyone needs to be tested within 10 days of the opening of school. And honestly, there's even been division about that 10-day notice of is 10 days not enough? Is that cutting it? Because, that 10 days before you could test negative and then certainly within 5 days prior to contract the virus or so on and so forth. So, but that's our current mandate because we thought that was more realistic for testing in regards to everyone who would be entering a school building. School aides, that's every profession that would be entering the school building. And students, of course. And the city has not even said anything about that in regards to students being tested for, I haven't heard anything in regards to, that's one of our checklists, that in order for everyone to go into school, that we have students also being tested and everything of that nature.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for that. And I just want to say thank you to Kim and Pam and Marquise, but also I want to know, what can we do? And Charles has put this question in the chat as well. What can we do as we all seem to know what the issues are. The problems are, the school district is clearly not prepared to open up on September 10th. What is it that we can do? What are some action items that we can take as a community board to help out CECs 3 and 5, as well as you, Marquise, and moving forward, because we are here. We have the chair of community board 10 here. We have the first vice chair and the second vice chair who are here in support of this very important issue of back to school, and we are ready to work and get the work done.
So this is Marquise speaking. I mean, one thing I think, or a couple of things I think we do. First is that the UFT had a joint press conference with like many civic organizations, including the NAACP, Dr. Dukes, and so many others were on that call where they expressed to the city their outrage and their preparation and their planning, right? And I think that maybe, you know, we might want to think about a board letter and not in expressing outrage, but maybe in expressing like, we don't believe schools can open until, right? These things are, and I have a checklist and things that we can perhaps put in that letter to say, here's what we believe needs to be in place for our schools and our students to be safe. Because at the end of the day, every teacher I've spoken to, everyone is tired of being home right now. Everyone wants to be out, but they do not want to be out if they think that their health is at risk. And that's where people are scared.
Right.
You have teachers who are very scared because that they might contract something, even if their health is good, but because so-and-so, their mother lives with them and so on and so forth, or they're, you know, this and that and the other. And so that's one of the main things. The other thing is, I think calling the mayor's office or calling your city council person is important to say, we need to make sure that these things are in place. You know, appropriate PPE, testing, and instant testing in schools, so that when we have suspected cases, how are those kids and those adults being tested immediately so that we can actually, you know, trace and figure out what's going to be in place if they do have it, and so on and so forth. And you know, at the end of the day, I'm telling you all that, and I look at it as a sense of the teachers are ready to, and I say this because I know the administrators feel the same way. We're actually on the same page. CSA is very much in favor with us on the teachers UFT. However, the UFT is going to sacrifice and willing to sacrifice our paychecks and everything else in violation of the possible Taylor law if these things are not in place for the safety of children and ourselves, right? You know, and so, you know, I never thought we went without a contract for 5 years and never went on strike. We're talking about something like this, and because our lives depend on it. And so we might be, you know, walking the picket line. And if we walk the picket line, the one thing you can also do is that walk with us, because we're going to need everyone there, because it's about the safety and health of our kids. So we'll need everyone there to make sure that we are doing this together if we have to do that.
Okay, thanks for that. Kim, you were going to say something?
Wow, I mean, I would just want to echo everything Marquise just said. I mean, absolutely. The things that came to mind as you asked that question, in addition to everything he just said, which I didn't come up with, but I'm gonna jump on that bandwagon, is to think about maybe the issue with the child care, you know, the child care situation. Even though let's just sort of make our peace with this idea that, you know, September 10th is not going to be the first day of school, which I think we, you know, kind of just have to, you know, sorry, Mr. Mayor, it's just not happening. You know, there's just no way. This shit isn't happening. I don't know what he thinks is going to happen on the 10th of September, but we are not going into school buildings. So what I think we should probably start talking about is, in terms of community, you know, community level activism, is it what to do, what we can do to help families that need support. And I think part of that is, you know, potentially trying to help with broadband and Wi-Fi, working with, you know, any private companies and or elected officials that can help us bolster, you know, the what we know to be the case. I mean, even though the DOE got iPads into the hands of everyone that needed them in the spring, we have a whole new, you know, they say they're getting them back and they're going to recycle them or whatever, but we know there's going to be a big, kind of gap there, right? We have lots of kids entering kindergarten, lots of kids transitioning to new schools. I'm sure many of them have been broken and dropped, and so we know we're going to need more devices. We know that we don't have Wi-Fi for everyone, and then I honestly kind of feel like this goes back to the beginning of our conversation earlier today when we started, with this issue of like our street cleanliness and just doing things more together as a community. Maybe there is like a broader kind of conversation that Community Board 10 can be having in Harlem about how we can all band together to see the intersection of all of these issues for what they are and kind of reimagine the way that we support one another. I don't know what that comes in the form of in terms of like writing a letter or calling for, the heads of our churches and our businesses and, to get the schools together to really, really invoke the crisis for what it is on the community level. I mean, it is a crisis of economic proportions, it's a crisis of education, it's a crisis of jobs and housing. But the thing that's going to pull us out of it is ourselves. We're not going to get help from anyone, it seems.
Right. I agree. Pam Stewart, I'm not sure if you're still on the call, but if you could chime in. I know you had another call.
I think it's her CEC meeting tonight. It might be her council meeting. I don't actually know.
No, I don't think it's a Tuesday, is it?
Well, ours was not normally Tuesday, but we moved it because we didn't want to be on top of the PEP last Wednesday. So we moved ours to Tuesday last week. And I got lucky that you ended up having Zoom problems during our Tuesday CEC meeting because I was going to be doing a double Zoom thing there. And it's not.
Yeah, I know. I remember and I appreciated it. Okay, so I think that we as a education committee and Community Board 10, I think we have our marching papers. I think that a board letter is a great idea. I'm going to look for Marquise to send those specifics that the UFT is asking.
I will send the checklist over to you. Don't worry, I'll send it tonight.
I'll put together a draft and then I'll send it to you, Marquise, to edit. And we'll try to get something. Let's try to get something very loose together for the exec board tomorrow night. We can put together something very loose for exec board tomorrow. And also, I think that we can ask members of the committee to call the mayor's office and call our city council representatives and the senators and the people who are out here asking for our votes that, say they care about the community, which I believe that they do. And so we should reach out to them and see and let them know of our concerns, and our concerns mirror the concerns of the UFT and of CEC3 and of CEC5, because they came from one voice about the issues that are going on in the schools, in the classroom. And that voice is that they're not ready, that the DOE is not done enough to ensure that the students can come in safely for these students to be on the days that they're not physically in the classroom. So now we're looking at situations where, of course, young kids are going to be left home alone, which is a whole nother conversation. Because you talk about the economy restarting, so parents then have to go to work. And if they go to work, and I know that teachers are not babysitters, I get that. But if there's nowhere for that kid to be it at a after school program or school program or something, then the parent, who the majority of parents don't have extra money, they count on their kids being in school to get that breakfast, to get that lunch. And that's another issue. On the days that these 100,000 spaces that have not materialized that the mayor is talking about, what happens with food? Who's going to deliver the food to these places?
Amen.
Who's going to pick the food up from these schools, and deliver them to all of these small not-for-profits and these churches and these rec centers.
Yeah.
Who's going to be delivering all these breakfasts and lunches to make sure
Exactly.
that these kids get this food in these spaces? So there's just so many unanswered questions around the reopening, and it pains me that it is in such disarray. And I literally think about this, about how our kids are just going to be so far behind, because we as adults, and I'm saying all of us, the DOE, we cannot get our crap together to ensure that our kids can get a halfway decent education. So we're gonna work on this letter. We're gonna call the mayor. I'm glad to hear that Gail Brewer is chiming in. You know, we're gonna let her know as well that, you know, we are what we're doing. I'm gonna let our chair, Cicely Harris, who's supportive of everything that we do, as well as other committees, chime in now, since she has so generously given of her time to be on this call. Hi, Chair Harris.
Hello, everyone. Deborah, thanks for having this meeting. Committee, thanks for being here. And Kim, good to see you. So I don't know if anyone had a chance to look at the last borough board meeting, which was Thursday, but we did have, I think, Superintendent Rosales was there, Marisol Rosales?
Yeah.
She gave the whole presentation. All of the chairs and everyone that was watching the meeting, extremely concerned about what was going on, and really the lack of answers. And it was in many ways, I don't want to say embarrassing, but it got to a point where people were asking questions and they were like, oh, we'll get back to you. We're not quite sure, fumbling at answers. It was really not a great presentation. And so it was very clear, and Gail expressed, Madam Borough President expressed so vehemently that she was very displeased and very worried about what was going on and the lack of preparation. So she promised another meeting. It was unfortunate because the community was really getting engaged. There were a lot of questions being asked, but I believe Superintendent had somewhere else to go and couldn't answer those questions. So a bunch of those questions were put into an email for her to get back to us and figure out, you know, what, if there's anything that can be done. So there was a plan to have another meeting. So I followed up with Athena, and they're working on having another meeting, a longer meeting that just focuses on being able to answer some of those questions for the community. So hopefully that'll be coming up within the next week, and I'll let Deborah know. And I've also asked to be involved in the planning, and so Marquise and Kim definitely will try to cultivate something so that it can be a more pointed and intentional meeting if they're able to get Superintendent Rosales on another meeting. So I'll do that.
Great. In the meantime, I did put the link for the FACE meeting on Thursday. People should register for that. And because every meeting, and I've been on a lot of those Zoom calls too. And to Pam's point, you know, Pamela Stewart's point, parents are still asking these questions because they're not getting answers that make sense to them. And that's the problem. We're like going around in circles, chasing our tails 2 weeks out from school reopening, and it's quite frightening. It's quite frightening to me. Quite frightening to me. Thank you, Cicely. Is there anything that you wanted to add, Charles?
So I wanted to just, first of all, compliment Mary for making sure that we connected the homeless situation with what's happening within our schools, and Kim for reminding us, as you did, Madam Chair, you know, that we're talking about food scarcity. We're talking about a tremendous need for some of our children to take advantage of food opportunities. And sometimes school is not the best option, but it certainly is a food option. So Thanks for connecting all of the dots. I did see that my vice chair of housing, Donna Gill, has had her hand raised. So I'm going to ask Donna to weigh in. But I think you've done a great job really in this meeting, really, really laying out all of the, the connections. And as I put into the chat, we have an executive committee meeting. I am a second vice chair in addition to chair of housing. And I think we're ready to take action with some recommended steps. And we know that that action, Marquise and Deborah and Kim and others and Cicely will have to be evolving, meaning whatever we decide tomorrow night might be just the first salvo in some continuous and intentional weigh in on what's happening with our children, our future. So thanks, Deborah, for it. But I wanted to defer to, my dear friend Donna.
I'm sorry, Donna.
That's okay, Deborah. That's fine. I totally agree with everything that everyone has said, and I do believe, yes, we do need to send a letter out. But I wanted to ask Marquise, what has he or the UFT heard about the nurses that the mayor touted, that he would have a nurse in each school? Because I'm not hearing anything about that, and I don't know if that has actually materialized. So that was my question.
We've lost Marquise.
Okay. So I think also
he had to step off. Kim,
right? No, I'm just saying. I think in our letter we should also address that issue, because that is also a health issue, and it's not for the school, the aide that's in the kitchen to take the temperatures of these children, or to do as
well as social workers.
Exactly. So that's my point, and I think in our letter we need to address issues as well. Thank you
For that.
Deborah, I'll also shoot over to you some of the nursing updates that we put together at CEC3. We've been working on this issue for a long time. District 3 it hasn't had the worst situation relative to some of the other districts in the city in terms of vacancies, but the supervisor of nurses from District 3 and the lower part of District 5 has become a colleague of mine, a really dear friend, in fact, actually. And she, she retired, but she's still sort of consulting on this issue. And the number that the mayor is giving in terms of the vacancies and how he's planning to fill them is also a lie. It's not for 350 or whatever the number is, and he thinks he's going to be able to hire in the next couple of weeks. It's closer to 700 because there are all these nurses that are retiring and or needing medical accommodations. And what they're doing right now is they're recruiting nurses from around the country because they cannot find nurses to hire here in the area. So what we're doing is we're paying for relocation expenses. We're paying for hotel stays. We're paying per diem food, and then sort of top dollar for nurses, simply because we have bungled the nursing professional kind of relationship to our school system in such a bad way over the last 10 years that DOE just can't hire people. It's awful. It's like
awful.
Like $3,000 to $5,000 per week per nurse. So but they can't get it done in 2 weeks. They don't if you look at
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
There's too many variables that are unanswered. I don't think that they can be done in 2 weeks either. I'm going to leave it right there. I think that was a lot. Thank you, Kim, so much. Thank you, Pam. I know Marquise is gone. He's going to send me some information. And I'm going to work, when I get the email from Marquise, I'm going to work on a very loose draft that I can get back to him that we can present at exec board tomorrow. And as Charles mentioned, it's going to be something that's a working document, something that, will start us off. Tamara said that her union has a letter to the governor. Kim's CEC3 has a letter. And so I think that if we inundate these politicians with these letters from all these different organizations, and they know that we're serious and that we're awake and that we're watching and that we see and that we vote, hopefully we can get some positive responses that will keep our kids as well as our teachers safe, because everybody needs to be safe, which in turn keeps their families safe, because when they leave, they go home and they take whatever it is they've gotten. So I'm gonna leave it right there. If nobody else has anything else to say, I'm gonna end the meeting. You're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I had some other things on my agenda, but there are only a couple of people from my committee, and I'm gonna sort of leave those to the side and try to plan something separate just for the committee. But I believe that this was a great productive conversation, and Tamara, I will get you that information over to you. I'll get that information over to you that you asked for. Oh, thanks, Kim.
No problem.
Kim has put her email address and her phone number in the chat, and I can get over to you I'll send you Pam's email address. And so with that, if nobody else has anything to offer, else to say, I'm gonna wish you all a good night and a blessed evening.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.